Hi, my name is Christina, and welcome to Divine Energy in Motion. It has been a while. um, the last podcast episode that I recorded was at the end of 2024. And although I had it in my mind that I was going to record an episode and release it every Tuesday, I felt as though generating a podcast episode just for the sake of consistency wasn't really in alignment with like my actual growth. I felt like I didn't really have a lot to say that I wanted to express in terms of what I was going through. So I wanted to wait until I had something to say. And so here we are in 2025, April. um, yeah, so it was definitely like a winter, if you will. Um, I equate, my life in terms of seasons emotionally, and I would definitely would say from the holidays on uh, until springtime, where we're at right now, um, it was a death, if you will, of versions of myself, I guess, that didn't serve me. Um, and I feel as though, my healing is never linear. And so I feel now um, I'm in a different space, a different energy, in a place that I'd like to share. Maybe it resonates with you. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. I would say, as far as healing is concerned, for me, there is the aspect of healing, identifying those parts of me that need to be changed, that don't really serve me. And then the integration aspect of the healing, actually integrating those changes into my day to day life so that it's something that's just normal and kind of just uh, comes to me naturally, as opposed to having to be very logical and thinking about it and implementing it and making sure that I'm consistent with it, that it's something that's just organic and happens. So I feel as though definitely in the wintertime, um, there were aspects of where I was just questioning, where am I? Um, where am I going? What am I doing? You know, what's my next step in this like evolution of myself? So I feel as though the integration, it just is so important because it allows me to evolve into this newer version of myself. And I have to have patience with myself because I definitely in the past have been like, results driven. And that's not really something that I can apply to my healing, applied to like my growth and where I want to go. So I have to have, a lot of patience with myself because I really don't know where I'm going. And I guess that's the beauty of life, right? The adventure, like not necessarily knowing what's going to unfold today or in the future. I mean, in the past, I definitely was the type of person that was like, I need a roadmap and I need to know where I'm going to be going and what I can expect and what I need to do. And at this point, I'm really surrendering to this idea where I don't know what today is going to bring. Like I might have some bullet points of things that I would like to complete, but really like staying in this energy of flow for me and me wanting to be kind of in this feminine energy. I have to allow myself to release a sense of control. Sure, there's aspects of myself, this idea of having a balanced masculine and feminine within myself, but I feel as though the masculine part of myself has always been kind of more defined. And so I I think in terms of like my, I don't know, transformation, if you will, I kind of overcorrected on like this, on the aspects of femininity and just flowing and just allowing everything to come in. And now it's kind of this balance where it's okay, like where can I be structured, but also where can I just open and flow. And so I think you know, now I'm in this space where, people ask me, so what are you doing today? And I'm like, oh, I have this on the calendar or whatever. Definitely with my kids, there's a schedule. But as far as like the things that I want to accomplish, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what's tomorrow's going to bring. Maybe, something that I think might be important today may not even be important tomorrow for me because something else that I focus on is going to bring me, you know, to a particular place that I want to go in my life or whatever. So, um, definitely, I've been flowing with like these shifts in energy. Sometimes I feel like I'm totally like going in a particular direction and I can see da, 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 da. I'm gonna be accomplishing these things, and then all of a sudden I'm in this energy where it's like I can't do anything at all. And as much as I try to like work on something, it's like the universe is like, nope, stand still, rest. And I think also like this past winter, a lot of it has been focused on like me resting and like caring for myself. I think I've mentioned in past episodes where, I'm really focusing on like going to the gym, on my health. And so that, anything that's pouring into myself has always been consistent. Anything outside of that, I just have to take it all with a grain of salt and be like, okay, I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself because this may not be in the direction in which I want to go. So definitely, I think like the collective energies have been very like, I don't want to say volatile. Sure, like, political climate, things that are going on today. I mean, I'm sure you could say that the energy is really crazy. Um, However, I've mentioned, in past videos, I've kind of cultivated and created this bubble for myself and for my kids because for me, I don't believe that hyperfixating on the things that are going on outside of me is going to be any help to myself or anyone else around me. I've always thought like the best way to change the world is to change myself and, how I respond to things and like my perspective, because then it gives people the opportunity to kind of see a different way of living. It's all about free will, whether or not they choose to adopt that way of living or life, but that way of living or not. But for me, my focus has been just on self, like me and my immediate family, and really that's it. And if, the universe places something in front of me, if I'm not overextending myself, then it's for me. But I don't overextend myself anymore just because that's not really going in being in that state of flow for me. So, I mean, that might work for other people, that might not work for other people. That's really just expressing, what really works for me, and what I've been practicing in my everyday life. It's interesting. During that lunar eclipse in March, it was almost like the energies they were just so crazy for me. It was like, one minute I felt, so happy. And the next minute I was like, oh my God, I can't get out of bed. And the next minute I'm just like, feeling almost hopeless, which is like unusual for me now, after I've done a lot of work on myself or whatever. And it almost felt like it was never going to go away. And the couple of people that I do still talk to would reach out and be like, oh my God, what is going on? And it was almost like, I'm with you in solidarity. I have no idea. I just am trying to ride the wave. And it's funny, I had my first memorable experience of deja vu, and it was so bizarre. I mean, maybe I've had deja vu before, I don't know. And I I know I wasn't sleeping. It was like two instances, and it was something so silly. But it happened to be like I have like a washer dryer in a cabinet in my apartment, and in one instance, um, I had gone to sleep and left the cabinet open and the dryer door open, which is very unusual for me because like I have a routine at night where I like make sure all my doors are closed and locked, and all my cabinets are closed, and things are kind of like look normal, right? And so, you know, I thought it was really weird that I had left the dryer door open just like that, like as if I had to like run out and didn't have time to do that, like to close everything up. And then like there was another instance where I go into the dryer like to get some clothes, and I go to the cabinet and it's closed, and there's clothes in the dryer and the dryer door is closed. And I think to myself, I know that I didn't have a dream about this. I know I felt like I left this open and I thought it was really unusual, and now I'm looking at it again and it's closed. And I was just like, this is so bizarre, and in talking to friends and stuff, they're like, yeah, the energy is so weird. So it's like, I don't know if this is like some like, timeline collapses or something like that, but it's almost like instances, like two separate instances that happened at the same time. It was just so strange. So I knew like something was a little funny, so I'm just gonna ride this wave and, you know, like see what comes tomorrow or whatever, right? And in all of this, it's just been this giant trust fall of like remembering to surrender to this rainbow of emotions that I feel. Um, you know, these are like things that I've been like working on, but they always say that healing is like a it's like a spiral, right? And you kind of come around to these same lessons, and they're just like the perspective is just like a little bit different, but it's like the same lesson. And it's almost like I've like forgotten, like, oh, to ground myself or to breathe or to sit down, and then it's like come around and I'm like, oh yeah, but I know that my perspective has changed and I'm not the same person that I was before, but it still is the same lesson, just kind of in a different lens. So it's like this giant trust fall of having to, remember to breathe, and when I'm feeling a lot of feelings, like to kind of help myself regulate and go outside and put my feet on the ground and take a deep breath, and just remember that I'm okay, because it's almost like sometimes I feel like the energy is just in my chest, and uh, I'm it could be like anxiety or whatever, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? And I have to just pause and take a second to just breathe, because it can be so overwhelming, especially when I'm not setting like particular specific goals, and kind of opening myself up to say, hey, like whatever is for me, I'm not going to miss. So I'm going to be open to all options, so that whatever is like the best suited option for me, I'll be able to be in a space where I can receive it. So like in all of this, like I'm not super into like astrology. Like a long time ago, I remember being like, I don't believe any of this stuff. And then over time, like after like reading like different signs and like comparing them to different people, I was like, oh, this is like an actual thing. And so I've always like just paid attention to like my sun sign and my moon sign and my ascending sign. So like I'm a Libra, and I used to think I was a Taurus moon, but it turns out I'm an Aries moon, which totally makes sense. And I'm Pisces ascendant. So like I'm very much a Libra. I'm very much into harmony and balance and like diplomacy and being fair, and just, I like the arts, I like romance, I like beautiful things. Like I'm just a very Venetian type of flowy person, very much a Libra. Um, I used to think I had a Taurus moon, which moon is supposed to like tell you about your emotions and like how you process your emotions. And I feel like some apps mess it up because then I recently went into Chat GPT. This is like my new thing, and I know I'm late to the party, but I go on Chat GPT and I ask a lot of like spiritual questions and things like that, right? And so I wanted to, I was actually wanting to know what my north and south nodes were because I during the lunar moon, the lunar eclipse, like a bunch of random tarot readings came up on my For You page on Facebook, unsolicited, not looking for anything. And it was giving me all of this information and these random confirmations. And I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so one of the readings was like, make sure you look up your north node and your south node. And I'm like, I've heard this before. I've never really looked into it. I'll look into it. So, anyways, I thought that I was a Taurus moon, which generally like is very stubborn in terms of processing emotions. And I was like, that's weird. I mean, I guess I could be stubborn. I don't know. But then when I asked chat for this whole analysis and looking for my north node, I learned that I'm actually an Aries moon, which is like very much like articulating myself emotionally, which has always been myself. I've never been one to shy away from telling people how I feel, almost to an extent where it's like too direct, like Aries type of like Aries type of energy. And so I was like, wow, this totally makes sense. And then of course Pisces or your ascending sign is like how you present yourself to the people, like how you outwardly present yourself, right? And so I am very like kind of up in the air, very like spiritually flowy. That's definitely like how I am or whatever. So I look into it further. I asked chat to give me like an analysis, and it says that I'm um, a Cancer North Node, which I thought was really interesting. Just when I correlate it to um, like what it is that I'm working on, because the North Node is supposed to tell you like your soul's growth and life purpose, and like what you're supposed to be doing in this life, right? And so I was like, interesting. I'd love to see like, the things that I've just organically and naturally been working on, how they align to what, astrology says I should be working on. And this is basically what, Chat GPT said. I'm not taking any ownership on creating any of this like any of this information. This is literally stuff that I read off of Chat GPT. But basically it told me that like my purpose was to embrace emotional vulnerability, and learning to trust my intuition, which is so interesting because I've had like previous podcast episodes that is specific to learning about my intuition and really developing that, because that was something that I ignored like my entire life. I didn't even know what my intuition was. Like I knew what intuition was, but I didn't even know how it presented itself to me, like in my body or in my mind or whatever. And so it's been this like journey of trying to really hone that and trust it and have it be like another tool in my life that could be able to guide me into the direction that I want to go into. Another thing was in terms of my soul growth and purpose was nurturing others and allowing myself to be nurtured in return. And it's uh, interesting because like part of like this journey of getting back into this feminine energy is all about being in a space to receive, and not even to receive because you give. Like I've always had this like thing in my head where like I can only receive something if I've contributed something, as opposed to just being in a space where uh, I can receive and not feel like guilty or feel like I owe somebody something, like knowing that like I'm worth receiving whatever it is that's presented in front of me, regardless of how big or small or whatever the gesture is, that I openly receive what is for me. And like I've always been a giver. I've always loved to reciprocate, but I've never been great at receiving. And so as a result, because my mindset like wasn't there to receive, based on like self-worth, like issues and me having to work through all of that, I'm kind of more, I would say, in a space where I'm open to receive, and there's no like, you know, I don't want to say negative viewpoint, but I don't feel bad or off for receiving something that I feel there wasn't like a mutual energetic exchange between like a person or whatever. Um, so I thought that that was interesting, the nurturing of myself and nurturing of others. And then also shifting from being overly self reliant to building emotional connection and intimacy, which in the past, like I've always been super self reliant. I've always, at work, I would be like, well, I'll just do it myself. It's easier for me to do it myself, which doesn't really build a whole lot of connections with others. I mean, I would build connections through like socializing and stuff like that. But in terms of like team building, if you will, I was definitely always like this lone wolf type of personality where I was like going to be successful on my own merits, and that I was just going to focus on myself, and I wasn't going to rely on anybody else to help me. And that doesn't really create any type of like connections with people when you're working with them. So I thought that that was interesting because I am working on allowing people to help me and allowing and taking help from others. And like, if somebody offers, to do something, I'm still trying to be mindful and accepting it and not saying, no, 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 that's okay. Um, I'll do it myself. um, and then also the last one was prioritizing home, family, emotional safety over external success. And I remember like when I was working, I I said to myself one day, I was like, I literally just want to be at home, taking care of my family, like taking care of my kids. And this was like before I had children, and just stay at home and cultivate a home. Like I just had this pull, this draw to just cultivate a home. And growing up, my mother was a single mother and she did everything. And she was like my example. And I used to have this little sign that I got when I was like probably a baby or something. And it said, girls could do anything. And, you know, I, it was like a girl on like this, she was a cowboy on a horse. And I was like, yeah, like I can do anything. I don't need anyone. Like I was very much always like, driven to do like things outside of the home. And for a while, I always thought to myself, like, I don't want to be a homemaker. I don't want to stay at home. Like, that's not what I want to do. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to, have a lot of success. I want to do everything outside of the home, but not be in the home. And then at some point, there was a shift, and I knew that that's kind of what I wanted to do. And it's kind of it's not kind of what, it is what I'm doing now. I'm, a part-time single mom. My kids are with me during the week. I don't work a 9 to 5. And I really just stay home with my kids. I homeschool my oldest. He's 5, he'll be 6 in October. And I literally just, I home cook meals. I'm with them. We like go places. We go to the beach. Like last week we went to the beach to go fly a kite randomly. Like this is my life, and I love it. And I love, baking with them, and I love doing all of these things like at home, like creating a really safe and nurturing home space for them. And it's almost like it's creating like a safe and nurturing home space for me and for my inner child too. So I really feel that this has been what I've been doing, for the last, I would say, year and a half or so since I separated from my ex-husband. And so to see that that's actually in alignment with my North Node was like really reassuring, because I'm like, wow, like, if I had any doubt that I was like doing what I was supposed to be doing, like this is confirmation that without any of this information, I'm doing everything that I was supposed to be doing. So I thought that was so interesting. And I was so grateful that I came across that tarot reading that of the woman who was like, look up your north node. So like I tell you guys, like look up your north node because it's fascinating. And most likely in line with what you're doing already, or if not, may be like an opportunity to look at something that might give you true purpose and happiness, you know. And my south node, which apparently your south node is um, the things that you've mastered in a past life or that you were really good at, like in the beginning of your life. And so my south node was Capricorn, and early in my life. I was focused on like success, responsibility, and control. I mean, I was an accountant. I used to work a lot of hours, a lot of long hours for many, many years across different industries, probably like 17 years or something like that. And all I did was work, 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 because I thought that, climbing the corporate ladder and just like putting your nose to the grind and just, working through stuff was ultimately going to lead me to success. And while I was very good at it, um, it didn't make me happy at all. I just longed to like not be at work or like to do something like I like working, but working on something that would bring me happiness as opposed to something that for me just wasn't in alignment with me at all. So I thought that that was like super interesting. So this like natural progression from that like state of mind or from that way of living into this new way of living, and then seeing that from like an astrological like point of view, I'm like, okay, like that gives me confidence that like I'm doing not what I'm supposed to be doing, but what's gonna give me like true fulfillment, you know? It's interesting too with Capricorn being in my South Node. Um, One of the aspects of being a Capricorn South Node is avoiding emotional expression or viewing it as a weakness, which I was always very emotionally expressive. My delivery wasn't that great, but I always expressed myself. But I did often think when I was younger that, expressing myself emotionally was a form of weakness, and that, I needed to kind of subdue myself because that just showed like I couldn't be taken seriously or something like that. Um, and now it's almost like um, I'm being asked to uh, be emotionally softened, so that I can express myself, but in a way that's like uh, digestible to somebody else, but also, vulnerable in a space of vulnerability for me, and almost an intimate connection with another person. Um, so it's that like juxtaposition, if you will. Like it's very interesting. Um, Also, apparently, taking on leadership roles and having a lone wolf mentality was something of my past, which was so true. I remember before the pandemic, I used to say, I wish I could just work at home and like not talk to anybody. I could get so much done and it would just be great. And and I fast forward to the pandemic, I ended up working, at home, not talking to anybody, and it was just really lonely. And while that might have like worked like in in a in the early part of my life, or who knows, maybe in a past life, like that didn't serve me at all. Like now, if anything, it was really isolating, which I'm sure many people can like understand. And for some, they loved it, they think it's great. And even now that some people can still work from home and they might like that, and that might work for them. For me, I mean, in theory, on paper, it seems great, but like from an emotional perspective, it just was really like it was just really isolating and lonely. And so basically, operating under those in that way, it just doesn't serve me anymore. So it's like now, for me, understanding like I need to get out of that mindset and into one that is more emotionally connected. And it's interesting because from in looking up the North Node specifically, and it telling me, just Chat GPT telling me, what it is that I should be working on that would give me soul growth and life purpose, I was then able to, I love ChatGPT. I was then able to go in a chat and say, okay, um, tell me more about, emotional safety. One of the things that um, I'm working on is creating emotional safety for myself. And so I was like, okay, what does it look like to create emotional safety for myself? And again, I'm not taking credit for any of this because this is literally what ChatGPT spit out. But I thought it was interesting because a lot of it, I'm kind of already working on, but now I could kind of take a dial and say, okay, if these are specifically the things that are going to give me purpose and happiness, like let me like fine tune the dial and see if I could hone in even more on it that might push me to, where it is that that not necessarily where I need to be, but that is going to be most fruitful for me. Like the space for me to like live or whatever, right? So basically, chat says to check in with myself daily. So tuning into myself regularly, which is something that, I've discussed like, in previous videos about like to like really looking at my belief system to see what serves me, what doesn't serve me, and emotions. What did I say? I think in the past I said something like, the emotions kind of, if you peel back the layers, they are tied to a belief that you have about yourself, and if that's not true, then it's something that you need to change so that you no longer feel that way. And so that in itself is kind of tuning into yourself regularly because you're trying to understand like where it is like these emotions are coming from, because if they're consistent or repetitive or habitual or whatever and they don't serve you, they're not helping you, then it's something that needs to shift. But in order to do that, it's peeling back the layers of where these beliefs come from. So checking in daily, says naming my emotions, which also ties into that. Um, and then it suggested like journaling or voice notes, which I've used to journal in the past. And I don't know how I feel about journaling. It like comes and goes, but really I feel like this podcast is like a journal for me because it's literally, if anything, a documenting of like my transformation or my growth and being able to express myself. So for me, this is my outlet. For somebody else, could be journaling, chat suggested voice notes or something like that. But just being able to speak out loud or write like how you're feeling um, regularly, to be able to say, okay, where do I need a shift or what's not working for me. Um, it also suggested validating my feelings, um, which there was a time where I was always super critical of myself. And I was always thinking to myself, oh, why are you thinking like this? Or oh, why did you do that? Or why do you feel this way? Or oh, like so like annoyed with myself, right? And so now I've I've over the years I've been very gentle with myself. I've been handling myself with like a lot of tenderness. And I feel as I go through life, I'm handling myself with more and more tenderness, more and more tenderness. One, because I feel as though, how I treat myself is how the world is going to treat me. So I can't expect people to treat me tenderly if I'm not going to treat myself tenderly. So that's like one aspect, but another because I deserve to be treated in that way, right? Like regardless of people, of if people treat me that way or not, I deserve to treat myself in a way that's tender. Um, so in doing that, yeah, I do validate my feelings. I do say it's okay to feel, and I also avoid gaslighting myself and saying, why are you so, are you being sensitive or you're being dramatic or whatever? Because all the feelings are valid, right? I tell my kids it's okay to feel. So I tell myself it's okay to feel because it is okay to feel, and suppressing it or like numbing it with things, like that doesn't work. It just it, it festers, and uh, it's not good for you. It turns into disease, disorder, mental illness, whatever. So feelings are meant to be processed, at least for me, right? So and it's suggested too, talking to yourself as if you're comforting a child, of which, I've been really like reparenting myself, or talking to my inner child. How would I want to be talked spoken to if I was a kid, and there was an adult talking to me? What are my needs? And so and mentally, that's what I do. I do that all the time. I'm always very gentle to myself. I'm seldom harsh to myself, but that has taken years to cultivate. Years, I don't know, like 3 years, where constantly being, every time I'd say something negative that would just organically come out, I'd always um, combat it, I guess, with something positive, or with the way in which I want to myself to like think or speak to myself, that inner dialogue that I have in my head. Some people have inner dialogue, some people don't. I'm one of the people that have an inner dialogue all the time. So when it was negative, it was just terrible. And now it's positive. And I used to say, well, my sister used to say, you got to fake it till you make it. A long, long time ago, she used to say that. And so I would tell myself, like, in the beginning of all of that, like years ago, I'd be like, I got to fake it till I make it. Even though I don't feel good about myself, I'm going to pretend that I feel good about myself until I feel good about myself. And that actually worked. It like rewired my brain into feeling really good about myself. And now I love myself. And it's taken a while to get to this point, but I can genuinely say that I love myself. And I wish that for everybody. I really do. Chat also suggested to set boundaries to protect my peace, of which is funny. I've been doing that, and ever more so, probably midsummer through the end of the year. It was just, I mean, being a Libra, and one of our unhealthy tendencies is people pleasing and not wanting to upset anybody, and like, wanting to not be inconvenient, not wanting to be a burden. Like, it was really, really hard for me to, like, you know, put my foot down in an act of self love for myself. And where if something was disturbing my peace, or really not making me feel good, having to like walk away from that, or, you know, if it was something that wasn't like pouring into me, because it was like, I have to be, my actions and who I surround myself with have to be in alignment with like how I am with myself. And it's like, if I don't do that, it's like almost affirming to myself that I'm not worth the peace, or that I'm not worth the love, the self love. It's like, a lot of people think that self love is like bubble baths and pedicures. And while that's great, I love a bubble bath, I love pedicures. But it's like, goes beyond that. It's like really protecting yourself at all costs. And, not from a place of fear, but from a place of like unconditional love for yourself. So even, not talking to a person, even if that's your family or like your friends, and you may have to like distance yourself, or like, not talk to them now, talk to them later, or even, maybe it's something where, you're just not in alignment, and that person is just cannot be in your life. And as much as it's terrible, and you feel terrible, to do that, it's when you pick somebody over yourself, you're just telling yourself that you're not worthy of that, protection or love or whatever. And so, it's been a lot where my circle is very, very, very small. But I really truly believe that I'm opening myself up for my tribe, because if I'm not myself, and if I'm not honored for being myself, really truly being myself in a very like organic and authentic way, and if people around me don't honor that, then like, what am I telling myself indirectly? Like I'm not worth it. Like, so, the people are out there. It's just making space for those people, and really like opening yourself up, and me really truly being my authentic self, and just being patient and trusting the process, and trusting the universe source that everything is going to unfold the way in which it should. I think at chat and some other chat was like, if it's for you, it's you're not gonna miss it. And that gave me so much calm, because I'm always like, oh, what about timing? And what if I don't do this? And what if I don't heal fast enough? Am I not gonna am I gonna miss out on like friendships and all of the and that's I've that really like resonated with me, because I had to sit down and be like, no, everything is in perfect timing, divine timing. Like whatever is for me, I'm not gonna miss it. And so I just have to trust that whatever is put in front of me is for me. And maybe this idea that I think that, oh, I really want this, or I really want that, maybe that's not even in my best interest, and it's something else completely different that is for me. So it's like this idea of like surrendering. I mean, I can't say that enough. It's been such a lesson for me to just surrender. It's like I wish I could say it's every day I have to remind myself, but sometimes it's like every 10 minutes where I'm like, take a breath. Everything is going to work out the way it's meant to work out. And so, yeah, chat suggested protecting my energy like it's sacred, because it is sacred. The peace of mind is so sacred, and it's taken me so many years to understand that and realize that, like, this inner peace within me, like once I got there, I realized I don't want to disturb it. Like, this is where I feel like in a place of zen, right? As when I'm in my own energy and I'm in a state of peace. And so if anything is like contradicting that or threatening to like disturb it, it's not for me. And that's how I know it's not for me. If it's going to make me feel like terrible, no, I'm sorry, I cannot. Chat also suggested creating a safe inner dialogue, replacing inner criticism with curiosity, saying something like, instead of saying like, what's wrong with me, you could say, oh, why did I act this way? Or why did I feel this way? Um, to kind of peel back the layers to say, okay, where is this coming from? And that's all kind of, what I talked about in earlier episodes about like, understanding like your belief system and where that comes from, and being able to like adjust your perspective by changing your belief system. So that's kind of like in line with like what the North Node is suggesting for me to do. Chat also suggested to practice self soothing, which I've been working on. Sometimes like I will just give myself a hug. I'll be laying in bed, and whether it's like in the morning or right before I'm going to sleep, and I'll be honest, I will just put my arms around myself and I will just give myself a big hug because sometimes it's like you need some sort of like, I don't want to say affection, but like if you're by yourself, it's like, I don't know, it feels very soothing for me. So I'll do that, and it feels nice. Chat also suggests like breath work and meditation or grounding techniques when you're feeling overwhelmed. Um, I really should do more breath work. I feel like in the instances that I have done breath work, um, it has been helpful. Of course, breathing is helpful, period. Even if it's not like formal breath work and some sort of like breath work, like I don't know if it's called a meditation or just like a or if it's just called breath work, but even just like breathing, like breathing in deeply 4 times. I don't know. There's stuff online that you could look up in terms of like cycle breathing, or I don't know what it's called, but the breathing period like is so helpful for me because I find I hold my breath a lot. Um, Meditations, I mean, everybody talks about it. I don't have to go into that. And also grounding techniques, which I think I just making contact with the ground. I go out to my patio, I put my feet on the concrete, and I literally just stand there and I allow the energy to flow through me. And I find that even after a couple minutes, I feel so much better. Chat also suggests to honor my intuition, of which we've talked about in earlier episodes and or in earlier in this podcast episode. It's really, really, really important. I've learned just really going with my gut. I used to go outside of myself to get direction in everything. When I was like in my early 20s, I used to ask everybody their opinion, and then I'd like sift through that information and make the best decision, because I always thought that I should go to like the knowledge base expert or somebody who knows more than me, because then I would be able to get like the best information. Like total like Libra unhealthy like Libra tendencies, because it's like you get all of this information, at least for me, and then I become so indecisive because like all of this information is almost too much. So then I get into the state of analysis paralysis, and it's like I can't make any decision. But it's really until recently that I realized, like, again, how I was like really suppressing my gut, suppressing my intuition, and like having to learn to get back into this like energy of homeostasis, like this energy of like um knowing what is my energy and what is a projection of somebody else. And so then being in that energy and being able to say, okay, like when things are for me, how do I feel? When things are not for me, how do I feel? What does my body tell me when things are not for me? Like, what is my mind telling me when things are not for me? Like, how does my energy feel when things are not for me? And so, really honoring the intuition. I mean, I couldn't agree with chat more. And I guess it's something that I've been doing. So, I guess I'm on course or on track rather. One of the things too about intuition that that chat says, it's like if something if something feels wrong, I don't need proof to walk away. That was one of the things that I'd be like constantly second guessing my intuition, being like, but this person doesn't have bad intentions, but but this doesn't seem like a bad idea, but then deep down I just wasn't feeling it, and I would just ignore that. So the idea of not necessarily needing proof to like know if something is for you or is not for you was really a big lesson for me. Some people, that might not be an issue for them at all. For me, that was definitely an issue, and is something that I took a while for me to overcome. So the last thing that chat suggested in creating emotional safety is cultivating supportive habits, um, and surrounding myself with people who honor my emotional world, as well as engaging in rituals that bring me back to my home self, like music, nature, and movement. So, for sure, you know, surrounding myself with people who like pour into me, and for people that don't, you know, really analyzing what that relationship dynamic is, and seeing whether or not that relationship, is best left like to kind of go by the wayside, or actually like, you know, cut it out of your life. And then also engaging in like alone time rituals. Um, I would say I'm really, really have gotten back into music. I started taking piano lessons again in September, August or September, and I've been taking them weekly, consistently. Piano lessons and guitar lessons. Which guitar, I tried in high school. I wasn't that great at, so it's getting like really learning that muscle memory. But with piano, like I used to play, and so I'm finally getting back into like how I used to play. I'm not quite there yet, but but I'm getting back into it. And like my teacher gave me he printed out this song for me last week or a couple weeks ago, and then last week he was like, "Did you practice it?" I was like, "I did not." And so he played it for me, and so I started practicing it this weekend, and I was like, I could feel it in my body as I was like playing it, even though I like wasn't playing the tempo, or I was like still reading it, so like it was going kind of slow. It's a little clunky, but I could feel it in my nerves. I was like, oh my god, I remember how I used to feel when I used to play. This is incredible. Like I feel like this is a form of meditation or whatever. Like I feel so good. So yeah, I totally agree with chat and finding like some sort of ritual or something that kind of puts you in that space where you just feel so good. Like I like going to the beach, I like being in nature, all that stuff makes me feel connected back to myself. But I definitely agree with chat and finding something and in doing it regularly, like as a ritual, as something to come back home to yourself. Chat also, um, I asked, how do I embrace emotional vulnerability? Because that, is something, it's on my North Node. It's something that I need to, really kind of hone, like to help me feel more fulfilled in my life. And chat suggested, um, you know, chat said embracing emotional vulnerability really opens the door to real connection, to deep healing, and to authentic living. So, the first thing that it suggested was shifting my perspective on vulnerability, which definitely I used to feel like it was not a strength. It was a weakness for me, especially during times of uncertainty. But really just shifting into the space that it is okay to be vulnerable, and that I'm going to be okay, because chat says vulnerability is a gateway to intimacy, trust, and freedom, which I totally agree with now that I'm trying to kind of like make that part of my day-to-day like existence of just being in a space of emotional vulnerability, um, in conjunction with being emotionally safe, which is kind of like, you don't feel safe when you feel vulnerable. So it's this kind of teetering of wanting to feel safe, but also allowing yourself to feel vulnerable. Um, Chat suggests to create a safe inner space, practice self compassion. So, like, it's okay to feel, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be afraid, it's okay to not have it all together. That's a major one because I'm always like, what am I doing? What are we doing today? Am I being productive? It's like those old South Node Capricorn like patterns that I'm trying to shed and not be so like hyper focused on. It's just for me, this idea of like surrender, it's just it's been it's been challenging for me, I'm not gonna lie. um and then also being gentle with myself, because when I'm gentle with myself, the vulnerability will flow. I kind of allow myself to be vulnerable. So yeah, chat suggests to start small, being radically honest with yourself, which it, it's hard. The lies we tell ourselves sometimes. Like, because it's, you can't expect people to be honest if you cannot be honest with yourself. Like, um, I really truly believe that I live in a world that is capable of being completely honest. Um, I have almost I've always thought that I'm almost too honest. Like I don't know how to lie. Like that I was like born with that pet peeve where like I cannot stand dishonesty and I cannot stand when people lie to me because I'm always like, why? Like like why be dishonest? And so it's almost like to a fault where like I'm just an honest person. And before I used to like be filter free and honest, and that's not really great. So with now it's almost like I don't really I don't really give unnecessary feedback if it's not asked for. Um, but in terms of myself, like I can't expect the world around me to be honest if I'm not honest with myself. So I agree with chat and this idea of being radically honest with myself because that's going to give me the opportunity to be, emotionally vulnerable. If I'm honest, then I can really, I can really, I don't know, I can really be vulnerable. You can't be vulnerable, if you're not telling the truth. Like, that's like some form of like armor that, you know, could have been necessary, with wounds and stuff like that, like old wounds. You don't want to continuously like harm yourself, right? Or allow other people to harm you. But at some point, you got to put the armor down and just tend to those wounds and heal them, because like it really prevented me from having like really authentic connections like with other people. So in releasing the armor, chat suggests asking, instead of shutting down, asking, what am I afraid of? uh that what am I afraid will happen if I let myself be seen, you know? Um it's really, I feel like we just all operate, not, maybe I can't, I can only speak for myself. I feel as though I spent my life operating from a place of fear. I was just always afraid. And at the end of the day, the things that I was afraid of ultimately didn't really matter. And it was the fear that like put these like self-limiting beliefs that didn't allow me to want to venture further out into the unknown, because I was just always afraid. Um, and some of those fears were like definitely justifiable, but it's like this whole idea of like surrendering and trusting, really trusting that everything is going to unfold the way it's supposed to unfold. Um, Honestly, I feel as though without this trust, this faith in like something greater than me or outside of myself, it would be really difficult to operate, in this reality, because it's it's a reality that's constructed so much on like proof and proof of concept and like, you know, um, well, how do you know? How do you know that this is going to work? Or how do you know that you're going to get that? Or how do you know? And I feel like in that asking, well, how do you know? It's like all based kind of in fear. So it's really taken me some time to kind of just really put that aside and just trust that there's something outside of myself that is actually myself within myself, that is like pulling things in directions, in the direction in which really benefits me the most. It's like fear is, chat says that like fear is based on old wounds, and bringing awareness to it can give you the opportunity to choose differently, which I agree with, because it goes back to like um, really understanding your beliefs, because those beliefs, if they're based in fear, really understanding why it is that you're afraid, could give you the opportunity to at least have the awareness that you're afraid to begin with, and then choose differently, and then keep choosing differently until it's no longer a thing that affects you. Chat suggests also to be present in the moment, which I agree with completely. Like can't I can't say it anymore. Like me being in the present moment, me being present, even just with myself. Not even with, sure, with my children, with the people that I'm talking to, with um, anybody. Being present is so important, but being present just even with myself, because it's so easy for me to, if I'm not feeling, um, if I feel off kilter, or if I'm feeling emotionally like anxious, or anything that doesn't feel good, I am very good at dissociating and taking my mind and going somewhere else so that I don't have to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling and wait for it to pass. But it doesn't pass if I don't, feel through it. And to feel through it, I have to be present in the moment, to be in my body and say, okay, what is this? Where is this? Let's let this go. And everything's temporary, right? Everything is temporary, even how I'm feeling. So even if I know, okay, I'm feeling like this is not going away, I know that it's not going to be forever. So just wait it out, do the things that are going to help me shift and ground, and eventually it'll go away. Chat also suggests trust that you can handle the outcome. Chat says, part of embracing vulnerability is knowing that no matter what happens, how someone responds, or how messy it feels, you will be okay. Your truth doesn't need to be received perfectly to be worth sharing, which, and a lot of the times it's like, I'm here quoting chat because it's AI. It's like, for some, like, obviously, like, the computer is going to articulate sometimes, um, is going to articulate what you want to say a whole lot better than me trying to figure out what to say. So I'm just going to, continue reading what chat suggested, because it totally resonates with what it is that I'm working on and what it is that I need to work on. And it's just so insightful. So and the last thing that I asked chat, this is a longer episode than what I anticipated, but I'm going to continue, is building emotional intimacy. And honestly, I feel as though, yes, these are the things that I'm working on because my of my North Node and what I read into. But a lot of these things too, they just sound like great things to work on regardless of your North Node, because it sounds like it would um, really intensify connections with other people, making them more like nourishing. So I love this for anybody, really. But I asked chat, building emotional intimacy. How do I do that specifically? And so chat suggests, whether it's like romantic or platonic or even just emotional intimacy with myself. It's about cultivating safety, trust, and presence. Um, so within myself, like a deep self intimacy. Chat suggests being, again, this is like going back to what kind of, what we were talking about earlier in this podcast episode, being radically honest with myself, feeling emotions fully, offering myself tenderness, and creating alone time rituals. With my kids, because I wanted to make sure that not only I was building emotional intimacy with myself, which looks very different with than building emotional intimacy with others. I wanted to make sure that I'm building emotional intimacy with my children too. So chat suggested safe emotional bonding with my children. So mirroring their emotions. So, like if their toy breaks or whatever, being like, oh, you're feeling sad because your toy broke, um, helps them feel seen and helps them feel safe, which totally makes sense, because it's very easy as a parent, like for me, to like dismiss, a kid's feelings over like a toy breaking or something that seems super minimal, because like, I'm 42 or 3, or I don't even remember how old I am. But as a woman in my 40s, I'm like, it's not a big deal, right? But like for them, like it's everything. So, you know, they're really forming, their inner dialogue. So I really have to be careful in how I interact with them, because I don't want them to create this inner dialogue that doesn't serve them, because they're going to be like me sitting here trying to create, having spent years recreating my own inner dialogue. Like I would like them to, have a good, start, and not have to fix like an incredible amount of stuff. Chat also suggests co regulating with them. So, like when they're upset, staying calm, staying present, because your energy becomes their anchor, which I feel as though I've gotten so much better at. Like last year, I was a hot mess. Like it was, and I have to give myself grace, because it's like I wouldn't have known that I had these issues until like I saw these issues through like acting them out. And then afterwards, feeling like terrible, like, oh my God, I can't believe I talked to my kid like this or whatever. But like I give myself grace, because I'm like, wow, I was able to identify that, so that I can shift and say, okay, like now I'm going to adjust and I'm going to be softer. But I've definitely found that like as I'm pouring into myself, the more I pour into myself, the more grounded I am, the more like grounded I am for them. And like my oldest son, he would have so many meltdowns during the day, and I'd be like, I don't know if I could take this. Like this is like extreme. And as I kept pouring into myself, as I kept like making sure that I was calm, that I was in the space of like homeostasis, like very like centered energy, like I was centered and like they were centered. And even when like, of course, like he's 5, like he's gonna have, you know, um, his gripes about stuff. Like even in those moments, the meltdowns weren't so like catastrophic. It wasn't something that was like completely derailing our schedule or like completely derailing the rest of the day. It's, uh, it will come and then it's kind of goes and then we move on with our day. And so really just in these last like months of just being consistent with myself, I've just noticed like my outside reality is changing and so much for the better. Normalizing feelings, I mean, we have a book on feelings that we got from the homeschool curriculum, and it's got all of these feelings. Some of them are so funny. It's like I forget what one of them, sassy or one of these like descriptions of feelings where I told their teacher, I was like, if my oldest comes telling 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 you that he's feeling sassy or whatever, it's because we have a feelings book and we've identified like all of these different feelings, but really just naming and normalizing feelings like for them, but even for me too, because it's like how many adults are like normalizing their feelings? It's like we were taught, as at least my generation, we're taught to like compartmentalize everything and like really like, not um like just not pay attention to those feelings. And, really, it doesn't serve us. I really do believe that these types of things manifest into disease, disorder, aging, like all of it. And so, naming and normalizing feelings so important. Um, the chat suggests be vulnerable with them in age appropriate ways, which I thought was interesting because they're suggesting, oh, mama feels a little sad today, but I'm okay. Teaches them emotional honesty. I've never thought about emotional honesty before with my children. Like, I've always thought to like shield them from anything that I'm going through. And not to say that I want to sit here and overshare with my kids. Like, my kids are not my friends, they're my kids. But I feel as though the idea of like really being honest with the way that I feel, like if I'm not feeling that great, there have been a couple of instances where I have been like, I'm not feeling that great, has nothing to do with you, but I'm gonna be all right. But at least they know like I'm not a robot or like the Stepford mom. Every day I'm gonna feel like great, so that they know that it's okay, that they're not feeling, if they don't feel great, that that's okay too. And I need to honor that as well, and I have to remind myself too that they're not robots, that they also, it's okay for them to just feel like blah or whatever, and me hold space for them and allow them to feel however it is that they're feeling. Cultivating emotional intimacy with others, chat suggests being present and curious, asking people deeper questions instead of like surface level questions, which I've always kind of, that's been my nature. I keep referring back to my sign, but that's like totally a Libra thing, like, and wanting other people to like feel good. I've always been the type of person to like ask questions to make people feel heard and things like that. But that does, cultivate a good connection like with a person, and emotional intimacy. um, Chat suggests sharing my truth gently. I laugh at the gently because I've always shared my truth, but in the past it wasn't necessarily gently. So I've definitely been working on that now for sure. Like I would say, like me wanting to be in this more flowy feminine state has definitely like worked into being more like emotionally gentle. So yeah, sharing my truth gently is what chat suggests. Don't perform, just be. People connect with your presence, not your perfection. Which that was totally me before. I felt as though, especially in this last year and a half, where I've been in hermit mode and trying to really understand what I like and what I don't like, who I am as a person. Um, I'd say things like, like, and trying to understand what I like. I spent my whole life um, giving people what they wanted, and almost like performing. And so, like, I would do the things that I'd like to do, but in order to create a bond or connection in my mind, I thought, oh, I'll just do what they want me to do, and it will always work. But then somewhere along the lines, I like lost track of what I like to do and what I want to do, because it's just so easy for me to just play a persona if you will. That's not to say that I was dishonest to like everybody in my past, but I definitely would kind of like want people to feel comfortable or want people to feel good around me. And so I'd kind of like, I wasn't like a completely different person, but I'd kind of like tip the scales a little in that direction so that they could be more comfortable. And so, or with another person, I'd chip the scales over in the other direction so that they could be comfortable. So my house parties were always so strange because it was like there's like so many different types of people, so many different types of personalities. Looking back at it, I'd be like, no wonder there's just like these like little groups of people because it's like I just was I was everybody. I was friendly with everybody, but I wasn't like consistently myself. So like the crowd of people kind of showed that, if you will. Um and so the last thing is chat suggested to set boundaries from love, not fear. Intimacy thrives when you know you're safe to fully be you, which um, kind of is really important because I never thought about setting boundaries from a place of love as opposed to a place of fear. I guess I wasn't intentionally setting boundaries from a place of fear, but there was like some fear around it, I guess, that I wouldn't, excuse me, some fear around it that I wouldn't maybe be like from a place of defense, like me defending myself. I guess that's could be connected to fear as opposed to a place of loving myself. Um, but setting intentions is so important. So any boundaries that I set going forward, I'm definitely going to think about it from a space of love and not necessarily from a space of like defending myself, which could be more along the lines of fear. Um, but definitely to be able to fully express myself, that's just one thing that I definitely I really hold a lot of value and weight to that. Um, and I had no idea that I wasn't expressing myself for my whole life. Like I would express myself, but like it was always like I said before, under the guise of like wanting to connect with a person, but not really understanding that if you don't connect with a person, they're just not for you. Like I wanted to connect with everybody. And if I didn't connect with everybody, I would kind of internalize that and look at that as it being like a me issue. But like not everybody's for me. And that's okay. That's not supposed to be the case. So um yeah, I really found that to be a really good exercise for me. Um, and so I invite you, to take a closer look at your soul's growth and life purpose. Look up your um, north nodes, south nodes, see if you're, already in alignment with what it is that your north node is kind of pushing you in the direction towards. And if you're not in alignment, maybe it's an exercise in which you could kind of change your perspective and, tune into those parts of yourself that you need to cultivate as it relates to your north node. Maybe it would give you more happiness or more fulfillment or more nourishment like on a day-to-day basis. Um, and it would be interesting to see what your south node is because it could be very much in line to how you were, at the very beginning of your life, or tendencies of which you're holding on to and they're not really serving you and you're not understanding why because you feel as though you've mastered those aspects of yourself, yet um, they aren't propelling you in the direction that you want to go in. And I'd love to hear about it in the comments. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time.